Alright, hey everybody, how's it going? Long time no see. We have a new video for New World, a update to the Season 1 Fell on Fire update that came out. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy one, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. As we already know, there were a lot of changes in the game here, mainly changes to Fortify and some skills and grit being moved over to Con. For this video here, I'm going to try to chop it up into main segments here and release some other topics in other videos here. What we're going to do mainly just discuss what has really changed with my build and the builds that I'm enjoying. When the season first came out, I was thinking I was going to be able to do heavy armor, 300 con with sword and shield with spear, and I did try that build. It was pretty fun, but the impact that build had at the last tuning adjustments from AGS, which then took down the fortifying perforate here, which is what I was going to use to stack it, along with fortifies being changed in general, ended up kind of killing that build and its impact. The bleed from it is really good still. You could still use that build if you want it to be like a support, but it becomes very group dependent and your kill potential goes down the drain almost. So I then started experimenting again with sword and shield, great sword, and also two sword and shield and great axe. Uh, Going on with the great axe build and how that went, the sword and shield great axe was very good at closing the gap, grouping up people with grab will. But the recent nerfs to great axe made that build very underwhelming when it came to just being caught with a one-on-one. The great axe was mainly used for the damage on it, which was nerfed pretty hard. You did have grit still, but you were kind of just somebody that can catch up and harass people and not necessarily apply enough pressure to have you seen as a threat. I then tried 300 con with sword and shield greatsword. It was cool. I did run it with a thwarting strikes greatsword here to try to maximize on the impact that you can give. Now, I know what a lot of people may be thinking, you're in heavy armor, not supposed to do that much damage, but in my type of playstyle here that I use, and on this server, if you don't have enough pressure to make people back off, they will just turn around and run you over. And if you're just standing there holding block, you're not really going to do anything. They're just going to annoy you, and then you're going to be the last person to die. So you have to come up as a threat on that person's radar. So going on to the 300 con great sword and shield build that I tried, it was pretty cool, but the impact on it was pretty lacking. So then we went back to the 166 strength, 150 dex, 200 con build, and it felt amazing. Your damage was there more so of other bruisers. You were able to apply pressure. The only thing is that there's a lot of range damage out in the game now, and at 300 con and at 200 strength, in a OPR 3v3 arena scenario, I found that it was not as detrimental as long as you could position yourself correctly. I will say though that during my initial testing, I was getting kind of blown up in the beginning because you weren't really applying enough pressure, which would make people want to back off of you a little bit. So that's what I did try, and didn't really work out too well. Moving on to the 166 strength, 150 dex, 200 constitution build, that did work out very, very well. And like I said, that's the old build that I was running before. You have a lot of pressure. You can move in and get your job done. The only thing is that I found that the great sword itself was being dodged a lot more than it was in previous patches. I don't know if everybody kind of just started switching to light armor a lot more this patch, which that is a whole nother topic. But everything just seemed to be dodged so much more. It was very, very noticeable. There's also a lot of lag within the servers and mainly like positional desync, and also too, maybe I'm overlooking a little bit, but the increased CC duration from heavy armor applied to slows, and that allowed you to really catch a lot of people. I think that as a nerf, that was a really, really big hit, along with the built-in freedom that everybody basically gained, except light armor. But then light armor got shirking for nerfed and then went to a lot of freedom. So you're noticing everybody's being a lot more squirrely and they're a lot harder to catch. So in order to counter that, I've been mainly running a build where I can do most of my damage on the sword and shield bar. And I'm using the great axe as a cleanup. Mainly because the great axe, when you are in the defiance stance, you are a little bit tankier here, but it seems like you can't, due to the nerf of the heavy attack speed in the left side tree when you're in the onslaught stance, that heavy attack only being 50% faster and not 75 is a big change. So you can't spam heavies anymore, and with all the ranged dot damage coming in, taking increased damage is not a good option. So in this build setup, what we're using is we're basically using the sword and shield to apply most of the pressure, close the gap, and we're literally swapping to the great sword to do one or two skills and then swap back to the sword and shield to apply more pressure and keep on top of the enemy. This has definitely worked out very well for me in OPR and 3v3. Again, this is not a build I would use in War, so War is a completely different build, but I will wait for the day that we have a great sword and shield in War, because that would just be extremely fun on my end, because it's the build I have the most fun on. So let's go ahead and get into what was working for me as far as gear setup. This is without food here and without a different gem. The gear set is a pretty cool add-on too as well, so definitely like that. Let me go ahead and put on what I had on exactly and then show some options here. So I'm using Carrot Cake, obviously. Desert Sunrise is definitely needed for all the dots. I was thinking, does this outweigh the increased damage taken from Invigorating Punishment? Which we'll get to that a little bit later. But the Invigorated Punishment, it does not really interfere with that too much here. So that's still a viable option that we're going to use. Moving on to the other consumables here, you're going to use your regular honing stones. I will say that these flame protection pots here have been my new go-to as far as a defensive potion. It increases fire absorption by 15% for 30 seconds, unlike gemstone dust, which basically until you receive damage 15 times, which could easily be done in a meteor shower or ice storm and it wears off and you just have the cooldown on it. This has unlimited time. It also is increased 5 seconds per each bag you have with lasting consumption on it. So it's a really good option. The only thing is that there's only a fire one. They have a void one as well, but no ice one. Going on to the weapons here, we're still using the great axe from last patch here. We are still using Trenchant Strikes here. I want to mess around a little bit with a Trenchant Recovery one, but due to its nerf here and I don't know, with the amount of plague in the game, it's just having it reliably ready for that big hit is to me more of a benefit than trying to get a heal off with it. And like I said, a lot of people are a lot more squirrely, so trying to get that hit off, you'll probably take in more damage than you would actually gain trying to get that big hit. The sword I have switched to here is going to be the Sword of the Champion. This thing is it's serving me pretty well right now as far as the entire setup, and I'm not really seeing anything else that I have at the moment. I would say, if anything, I would want to try Shadow's Edge from Brimstone in order to see if it can compare. But that's been definitely working out pretty well, especially with Fortify increasing people's armor. So even if someone is in medium or heavy, and when they do get Fortify, this penetrating backstab really comes in handy. What I found here is running 5 Shirking Fort, 5 Freedom for heavy. I know everybody is on the elemental aversion thing, but elemental aversion for heavy is not too much of a damage increase. The only benefit that it has is that the damage is reduced consistently without any condition such as dodging. Now you may be thinking, as far as doing a dodge in heavy, that's not really too viable. Well, going on to the amulets choices that we have here, what we mainly run here, this is my other one that I usually run here, I swap these two out, is an amulet with Fortify. Fortify does a lot of things here. On our shield, we're going to have Accelerating Resolve. This is a good one. You can also swap this out because I know this is a legendary shield that you can't get anymore. But you can also swap it out here. I use this one as well. such as fortifying shield rush, sturdy fortification. You just mainly want sturdy fortification and fortifying shield rush or accelerating resolve. The main reason for that is because accelerated resolve increases your healing, which is really good when you pop it because it's already long animation. You can pop it in a corner, hit a potion. If you have divine on your amulet with this, it will result in about a 5k heal, having 13k health. Going on to the rest of the gear, as I was stating here about elemental aversion versus shirking fortification and why I chose shirking fortification. I chose shirking fortification mainly because it's more consistent for all damage, and a fortified amulet makes that 6 seconds. So getting a dodge in combat every 6 seconds, and the rest of the setup that we have a lot of ways to regen stamina. So we're more so doing a lot more dodging than you would usually see, and that's where the stat also helps us as well. As far as the gems on the armor here, I was trying out 2 of the leeching ones here. I kind of like the way this setup feels with 2 of the leeching in combination with some of our other lifesteal effects. It just kind of helps it out a little bit more here. Um, and then, like I said, freedom and shirking fortification. Throw in some armor skills here. I would drop down to a minimum of 4 freedom, but the freedom that's built into heavy armor itself here is not additive to your armor freedom. So you'll run into some weird situations where you're just running, oh, I'll just run 3 freedom on the armor and already have a 20% built in. It's not additive. It's very weird how it interacts, and it feels like you could be doing yourself a disservice here, especially when running into ice storms and getting that slow off of you, or just getting out of stuns in general. Knockdowns themselves feel the same because they are knockdowns and not affected by freedom, but the main thing is that you want to be able to get out of those stuns really, really quickly. So as I stated here, there's a couple options you can choose here. Health is definitely a must on the amulet here. I like Divine. I was using Circuit Power because, like I said, we are dodging with Shirking Fortification here when we see the opportunity to, when our stamina is correct here. Having just a protection on there, I would say Divine is better than having a protection because there's so many different things. You're just going to be very strong against one and weak against the other ones. You can go with that, but this build is mainly played in OPR and 3v3s, and I don't swap up any other gear. Although I have some gear that I can swap to kind of negate an entire enemy's damage type, but this is a more all-around build. So Divine does definitely outweigh the protection as far as the slash and thrust protection because you're able to heal back up, which that's way more important, especially in heavy, because those potions hidden for only 4k is not the move. So you definitely want to make sure you have those up with the health that you have. And then, like I said, fortified also increases all fortifies that you have here by 30% or longer, which makes shirking fortification instead of 4 seconds makes it 6 seconds. It makes defenders resolve 10 seconds. Makes the sturdy fortification, the fortifying shield rest that you get, it makes that 8 seconds. It makes a bunch of things. Any kind of source of fortify you have, it just increases it, and it's very, very noticeable. Now here is the thing that brings the whole build together. I would say if you do try to go for a set here, just make sure you have some freedom and shirking fortification, at least 3 pieces with shirking fortification for a heavy setup, and then try to get a ring that's close to this. I got really lucky a few patches ago and picked this up for dirt cheap. But basically, Invigorated Punishment this patch is broken and applying to light attacks now. They basically changed this perk every patch. I don't know why. It was fine when it applied for your perks, the buffs on yourself, increasing your own damage instead of relying on the target you're hitting buffs. Also, too, we do have our slash damage on there because both of our weapons are slash primarily. And the main thing is we have Infected, which increases disease that we apply to targets for 29% longer. And that goes hand in hand with the sword here, with the great sword for Plague Strikes here, which I love this move, and that's why I'm kind of hesitant on stacking up a lot of life still, because I know a lot of good players. I see this that this is a pretty popular one, especially people are running it on spears, sword and shield. I mean everything. Plague Strikes is really the low key overpowered perk. It's 24% reduced healing for 8 seconds. That plagued on the ring makes it like 11 seconds. So you really have a lot of uptime with that as well. Also, too, in all your weapons, you want to have the dot gem on here. I'm going to get into a little thing here that when we get into the skill tree, but definitely have the dot gems on both the weapons here, any one of your choosing if you want. And for the earring, this is something that I've had sitting in the back pocket and wanted to try out, and I haven't taken it off since. Regenerating, refreshing toast, healthy toast. This would be best in heavy armor for heavy armor, like aggressive um, play, like this build is. For one thing, healthy toast here, and combined with divine, and if you're in a sacred, and if you are on the sword and shield bar with that extra 10%, it's close to a 1300 or 1380 heal. It does fluctuate though because it is base healing. So yeah, I think this does get reduced by the heavy armor's healing debuff, because in light armor this gets increased by the light armor healing. Um, so that's something you do have to overcome. I know in light armor, a lot of people they report around an 1800 heal. So that would definitely mean we're getting a lot less. But basically, trying to uplift all those healing values is going to show you a lot of benefit here. And also, too, just having a mana potion that you can easily chug through. And the cooldown is very, very short. I believe it's only like 10 seconds or so if I did mana potion. Yeah, it's only 10 seconds. So that's definitely way worth it. But healthy toast is going to help you live a lot longer. Regenerating is definitely going to help you out a lot. And a refreshing toast to have those potions up even faster. Now let's go ahead and get into the tech here on the weapons here. Like I said, the main reason why we have this stat split here, and this is very important. I see a lot of people on my last videos asking about this. 200 con at 300 con, I felt just as squishy as I did in 200 con when being focused by a lot of people. And if you position yourself well, you will be able to feel decently tanky in order to get in, do your job, or you still have the sword and shield with a tower shield. You can block with sturdy fortification. You do have a little bit of more counters than the other builds that you can actually stay in the fight. So the reason why we do this setup here is to get this weapon damage number up to 1410. This is where I see a lot of people make a lot of mistakes with greatsword. Greatsword, if you see that's 1410, a lot of people will either go, well, I'll just go like 150 here, and I'll do 50 here. They do 50 because it's strength and dex, and then they'll do like 250 or whatever. Stat split is 13-15. You're losing almost 100, right? Even though greatsword is at 80% strength, 80% dexterity, it does not scale the same. Even if you wanted to get the 200 milestone here for the extra 10% damage on stun and slowed opponents. If you just went and did 200, 116, because that's the amount of points you're allocating in it, 1403. You're still lower. You have that 10% on slowed opponents, but you're missing the cream of the crop of this build that allows you to run a ring without heart. 150 dex perk is broken, and using it in heavy armor is just it feels even better. So you have to have that. If you don't get this, you can't run hardy. Everything's lower in damage except your sword because it's mostly strength. But you want to do this. I don't think this 10% damage to slowed or rooted opponents here. It is nice to have, but having this and not having to have hardy and having a third perk on your ring, to me, outweighs the benefit. So that's why I usually run 150 dex for the perk, and I stack the rest for 166 into strength to get 1410. This is your base damage. You always want to make sure the base damage on your weapon that you're going to be using the most, as far as the most damage out of, is the highest as possible. That's very, very important. As far as the grit, I think the grit change here, I think this is a trap. You, it's so big of a loss for OPR in the arena setting. In a war setting, you have a lot more people in close proximity to you doing damage, and you're basically only using like a quarter of your total hits that you would want to do. You may not even get a full combo off of people, or before someone else throws in extra damage on top of it. So in a Zerg, which what most wars are, in a Zerg build, this is 300 con, you would definitely want to do that for grip. But if you're doing OPRs or arenas, even in like a small man group, you have to have more impact in your total group in order to make sure your group is successful. All right, and there were a couple ways that I ran the sword and shield. This is the build for, I'm gonna be as stout as I can and staying on top of the person here. And this is what using the shield with accelerating resolve. The fact that this goes up to 10 seconds with a fortified amulet is insane, because you basically pop this as you can. You have the movement speed, get into your area that you're going to be at, and then you can basically start trying to go ham. Also, too, this is counted as old fortified. So there's a lot of things that are counted as old fortified in the sword and shield tree, which you can see that it kind of got a buff. But the defender's resolve is 30% here. If you get this upgrade here, if your health is above 50%, it goes up by 20, making 50% of old fortified. And then I like to take the heal on the end here, because we are usually trying to stack this with divine. And if you step inside a healing circle when this is in, or when you swap off of your great sword and shield bar, you'll actually get the heal too, and uplift that as well. The main thing is that, like I said, we're trying to look out for ways that we can uplift our heals to stay in the fight. Having sturdy grip and high grip is kind of mandatory. Defensive training here goes great with the sturdy fortification. There was a YouTuber that I watch here, Mercro, shout out to him. He does a lot of the calculations for heavy armor with sword and shield equipped. And, you would need to get over at least 4.5% fortified in order for it to be effective against invigorated punishment. This is 10% here, so you're way over that threshold. I do take defensive formation in times where group play and playing OPR, where I know we're going to be a little bit more clumped up here. We have a healer. Also, too, this does reduce your damage and your damage incoming, and this is also old fortified, so it's 30% old fortified. Stacking this on yourself, like let's say you're stuck in a grab well and someone throws a meteor shower on you. The main thing is a meteor shower is AoE, but if you have this fortified on you, you may not block the attacks, but you'll reduce the damage from it. Also, too, if you block if you have a smolder on you, or a dot, or a bleed ticking from a spear, it will also reduce that damage. Recuperation, you want to increase your healing as much as possible. This is a no-brainer. Final blow is just for that 15% extra damage here on that last hit, which you're going to try to land. But it's a little bit tricky, so I'm going to show you a way to do that as well. Elemental resistance, this is sort of old fortified. The only thing is that it's a smaller amount. In reality, this is about a 7 to 8% fortified, but also too still good for elemental attacks. And then this one is sturdy shield. This one I have in this build, but I'm unable to fit in the other build that I'll show you, but it is also very good when stacking fortifies. Achilles heel to get that slow on the third final attack here. Precision for more critical, so because we have the sword with vicious and keenly empowered on it. And then leaping strike here, I only take the first two. This last one, the perk for leaping strike sucks. It does not do this. Everybody has so much freedom that the slow just gets deteriorated, or they dodge and then you're basically like your slow is out. They've cleared enough distance away from you for this to not be effective. But critical precision is effective because it allows you to close that distance. Anytime you can pick up a haste is always great. Now, this build is set up, like I said, you can try this one out as well. Let me show you the other one that I use. The other one that I use here is set up. Now, this is where some tough changes. This is where some tough choices have to be made, and only a few can come with you. Alright, so this is a more aggressive setup here. Your light attacks can hit for 1500 on most targets, and then when you get a lot of stuff ramped up here, it could even go up to 2k. This is for staying on top of targets and being able to do quick attacks here with your sword and shield. It's a little bit more aggressive. You don't really have Defender's Resolve impact to fall back on, but it's also good if you're fighting a Void Gauntlet. That Void Gauntlet's going to be able to strip that off as well. The main thing with this though is that I don't take the last two passives here on this shield bash, because more than likely, unless it's a duel or 1v1, they're going to get broken out of this stun anyway. And also, Berserk still does get you out of stun anyway, so It's not really too much. If anything, you're doing that just to get you a second to land another attack, or swap to the great sword and land an attack with the great sword. So it's mainly just a small setup. You don't really want to get too reliant to to used to relying on the sword and steel shield bash with the upgrade here for fighting here, because I think you lose too many other perks here that you actually need. Mainly the blocking perks, since we are in heavy here, these are kind of mandatory to have. They feel really bad when you don't have it because everything does kind of chew through your stamina super fast. The main thing is I swap out Sturdy Shield with Invigorating Bulwark. If you have a dot gem in your sword, when you do a shield rush or a shield bash, the dot will tick again and give you an extra 15 stamina. So you can actually get 2 times the effect for just one move. So that's just a little um, tip to know here. But basically, in this tree here setup, you have a lot more aggression and a lot more ways to bottle up sword and shield's damage, which it does very well. It has no problem with kind of increasing its damage on the fly. All right, that's the sword and shield setup here, the second one here. And now let's go to the great sword. The great sword, I have 2 setups for this, but it's mainly just swapping out one skill. The main thing is that I have switched over to using the right side Defiance tree, Undying Defiance. This is great as far as just getting a heal and not really thinking about it. It has a little bit of life still in it. I see this as being more valuable than just having to reduce cooldowns because, for one, your light and heavy attacks are pretty hard to hit with the great sources. They have reduced the tracking and they reduce the speed from the onslaught tree. So you're not just able to sit and heavy attack, so might as well have it do something like bring back some health when you do get into the defiance stance. That's when it's most effective because your point guard, when you're doing a heavy attack and you have the little blue shield in front of you, that does increase it to 15% of the damage dealt. Okay. Main thing here, perfect vigilance. This perk, I don't know, it does not do a lot, but for some reason I always notice when I don't have it. I don't know if it's just maybe that effective, but basically if you're going from full health to getting hit, and on this bar having that fortify come in, which the amulet increases it up to, I think that's 5 seconds or whatever, it is super noticeable to have that fortify in here to basically increase your overall damage resistance incoming. Different from weary posture when you first get into defiant stance here, it increases your armor by 25% for the next hit taking, which is still pretty good, but you want to have that just because sometimes when you pop these moves you will take some hits, and which that does come into play here. Blade honing is a must have here. Unflinching blade for the bleed there, which is very nice. I know I talked a lot of junk about arrow deflection, and in this meta, you need it. It's having so many bows come in. That's why I wanted to get down here to talk about it next. I have been using Calamity Counter, and it's been working out. I can't say I talked a lot of junk about this skill too, but the fact we can't sit in onslaught anymore, so we have to have something where we can be a little bit defensive and yet still leave opportunity. The thing I like about this is that a lot of people will, when they see an opportunity come up, they will try to jump on you, and so this will get people to back off. Also, too, if you see like a hammer coming up and you don't want to dodge, or with the perk, this gives you 19 to 29 stamina. You can have that come into your advantage, and also too, that stamina will start your stam regen, so it is beneficial in that way as well. And also too, it does have some really good perks to it where it will apply a bleed, and this is how I use it in the combo. I'll show you in a second here. And it will do a heal if you're in defiant stance. Most of the time I'm not, because I'm usually starting with this attack here. Steadfast strike here, you already know what it does. It does a stagger. It has a pretty decent range here, similar to a little baby reap, and it also gives you a heal as well. And then of course faultless defender, and then the right side ultimate here. The left side tree here, we have heavy blade to get down to swift onslaught because it counts as a buff for blade honing, and then we have critical comeback because it counts as a buff for blade honing. If we're going to make that a useful perk for invigorated punishment, we might as well make it a useful perk for us to get some damage out of it. Then we have Skyward Slash. This move is just great. It applies Plague, different from the Plague Strike Plague. So we have 2 sources of Plague on the same weapon. Great. The follow-up attack, which is great. This upgrade here actually adds the disease to it. And then of course we have step and strike because we are doing a little bit of dodging. That's why we're making sure we're trying to get our stamina back with critical comeback. Also, too, a lot of people don't really realize when you dodge and just do light attacks, just light attacks itself, attacks and power will restore 10 stamina on hit. So you can have a lot of ways to do different stamina management. And also, too, each hit of um, you restore 20 stamina. So you can actually get stamina back from um, Steadfast Strike. And with the perk on Calamity Counter, you can get, I have it on the boots here, 20 stamina from Steadfast from Calamity Counter. Sorry about that. So the main setup here, what I usually do here is that I will do Calamity Counter to bring you into Defiant Stance. From there, you can actually do the Steadfast Strike. Now, the reason why I like this combo here more so than what I was using before with Roaring Rupture. Roaring Rupture, yeah, it gives Fortify. It's only a 10% weaken. It's a long animation, but the main thing that Calamity Counter has over it is that you can animation cancel it super quick. You can just hit that super quick. It's not a long animation like Roaring Rupture, and it hits everybody in a 360-degree around you. And also, too, it'll do a bleed if you took any hits. Just side note, one Blunderbuss attack will proc it to full strength and do the full level 3 knockback. And you can just go straight into the Steadfast Strike, which if you're in Defiant Stance, Steadfast Strike will do a bleed. So right here, if you're in Defiant Stance, do a bleed, inflict 2 bleed stacks. It's not a lot of damage, but the thing is the damage can combo as it's ticking here, and then you can actually get some more hits on top of them. Let's say with the Skyward Slash. So that combo I really like here, mainly just because it's just so quick. Like you can just use that attack. It's so quick. I definitely like that about it. But that's mainly the setup and what I've been using. I know this video was a little bit long here, but I wanted to make sure I'm going to do everything here. Let me just make sure there's nothing I'm forgetting because that would be bad here. I'm still using Stoneform. Still like it. Detonate is kind of meh. Everybody's running elemental version still, so that counts as the elemental attack. So I'm not really feeling too much. But the long gist of the things here, I'm still using Circuit Fortification. Apparently, it does have a buff on the way, which is great, I guess, and we'll see how that all plays out. But right now, it's kind of it's on the edge of working and not working. So we'll just keep messing around with it and see what we can do. But anyway, that's all I got for you today here. I'll try to have another video coming out for you guys later here, talking about some of the other changes and what may need adjusting. You guys take it easy. Bye.